already been like a month since I've been
I
here.
love how talkative you are this morning. So let's keep this up in a directed, collaborative discussion with our guest speaker, okay? When she asks for feedback. So you guys know I've been very excited to introduce you to Joanelle Mulrain, someone that I had the pleasure of meeting just within this last year, but I've gotten to know a little bit, and like I've told you every time I've talked about her, you are in for a treat today. So enjoy, take it away.
Thank you. So I'm kind of an old public relations maven. I got the business probably, truly, about 1972. Worked for a nonprofit, used to do home tours in Jacksonville when they first started in the world. Then worked for May Cohen's, which is no longer a fashion and special events director. Then worked for Baptist Health, corporate vice president for 20 years. Husband died, raised 2 kids, retired in 2000. Couldn't stand it, opened a business, anyway, sold it to the walls in a year, couldn't stay in a small place. And then got a call from U.S. Senator Bill Nelson. I've known his wife forever, so I worked for Bill in Jacksonville, ran 9 counties, and had so much fun, went to Washington, worked on the Hill, and then worked on campaigns. Then my younger son wanted to come back here and finish school, so we came back, and he graduated from Kenny, the other one graduated from Bowles, went to Stetson. And then I got a call from some of my docs with Jackson Orthopedic Institute, so I went to work for them for 7 years, and Baptist bought them. Now I'm in meetings with people I hired in 81, 82, so I said, what time to go? So I have been freelancing since then, and I do strategic plans and work with physicians and owners of entrepreneurial businesses and help them do business plans. And I have a real estate license on the side. But my real passion is history and working with historical events, 2 of which, the 450th of Jacksonville with French Huguenot Captain Jean Roubaud, and then French Huguenot Captain René Golande Laudnier, and now the Memorial Park Association for the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. Very exciting stuff. We're doing a dig next Tuesday of names that have been put into a lead box, soldered, into a bronze box, soldered, and put into the ground 100 years ago. We're digging it up because we found more names of people in Florida, military, who died during World War I. Very exciting. More on memparkjax.org. But anyway, so public relations has been my forte, I suppose. I talk a lot. It was interesting to see which ones of you talked and which ones of you listened, and the survey, and thank you for sending it in, and then which ones of you actually used both of those things to strike a balance. And I'm sorry, I thought I sent the survey last night. I downloaded everything, so I'll send it to Joanna and you all can look at it, but it was very interesting. So, why not media relations, community relations, investor relations? What does PR mean? PR and marketing have gone back and forth. I know in the hospital industry in the 70s and in the 80s, it used to be public relations, part of the American Medical Association. Then they changed it to public relations and marketing. PR had money for advertising back then when you did things like print and radio and TV and things like that, and I've done all that. And then marketing came, but marketing had those P's in it, so somehow they started getting more money. So when corporations gave marketing more money, that kind of went above public relations. Now PR worked for marketing because we had to do the plans to launch marketing products. So now I think it's moved back. It just kind of goes back and forth. I don't think there are any set rules. Media relations obviously has changed because of the internet. Why I didn't get any of the Microsoft stock when it first came out, I don't know. I think $1 now is worth $3,000. Community relations, I do a lot of now because nonprofit work usually is based in community relations. And all of you, at least with the survey, got it, that when you have to deliver that message, you have to use that target audience, and you have to build those relationships. Without relationships, none of this works. Without relationships, you're not even going to be in business. I don't care if it's PR marketing or whatever you choose down the road. But the relationships you build now are relationships that hopefully you will keep them throughout your career. Many of you said that you came to Flagler because it had connections. It had connections above Flagler. It had international connections and other corporate connections that you might be able to take advantage of once you get your degree, maybe continue on into school. And that's really important. And I can't stress enough to get onto LinkedIn, keep drilling down, keep meeting those people. I've got almost 3,800, I think, on Facebook, something like that. And I massage it all the time. I add to it. I also do a business, Mulrain's Market, Farm, and Plantation tours. So I take people to ethnic grocery stores, and then we go over to Dennis Chan's restaurant on Southside Boulevard. He just won $35,000 from General Mills and the Pillsbury Doughboy for his cake, his pineapple cake. So I do that because I'm able to go in and pick and share, and I post, and you're welcome to friend me on Facebook, because I post really interesting things and people look forward to them, or at least they tell me to. And I also try to make sure that they're correct. 4 or 5 years ago, not everything on the internet was correct. It was also interesting to see what you all read. Mentors, some of you don't have a mentor. Some of you, most of you in the surveys, are looking to your professors as mentors, which I thought was great. That's a wonderful thing. I still remember the ones who had influence on my life, and you'll keep them forever. The national mentors, or international, Elon Musk came up a couple times, Bill Gates came up a couple times. It's interesting to watch how they move around. You know, it's more interesting to watch Zuckerberg. I mean, I watched him wiggle in the chair when he was, you know, appearing before Congress, and the body language told me, what you're saying you don't believe. You know, so body language is so much about how to interpret what you're learning from somebody and whether or not they're telling the truth. Because you're going to see more and more of that, because as individual relationships are still going down and everybody's going on the internet, and that's where you have your friends and that's where you post, etc. But the human connection is the most important thing of all. PR and marketing, social media, all of you all are on, most, except for one was not on Facebook. Snapchat I thought was interesting. LinkedIn is your business page, and you can start it now because you're going to be able to connect with people in the spheres that you would like to go into for later, and that's important. If you want to go into biogenetics, then you can begin to drill down and look at the people who are leading in that sphere and see how you can get in there and learn everything about the leadership in the field that you're trying to go in. How many people are on your Facebook, and what else do you all use for social media? Twitter. One was interesting. One person gets their news from Twitter. I'm also aware that Twitter changed the entire country of Egypt in 48 hours. That's important. I don't use Twitter a lot. I'm too old. I know that sounds crazy. Your generation uses Twitter. I have to pay attention to that. I use it for business, but it is definitely something that's in your toolbox. You've got to know what it is and how to use it to your advantage. And there's not a company that's going to hire you that doesn't ask you to do that. AI. Carnegie Mellon, I think, is the strongest in the country right now for doing artificial intelligence. One person asked about holograms. Today it was on BBC, are we going to have telephone conversations with holograms and converse with someone as a hologram? Fascinating. It was one of the bullets that one of you all gave me on the survey, and there it was. When I asked you, where did you get your news? CNN and Fox, BBC. I read BBC every morning. I don't watch it, but I read it every morning on my iPad after I play Words with Friends with people around the world. And it took me 2.5 years to beat my friend at Bloomberg, but I beat her. But those news sources, like Ronan Farrow, with New Yorker and what he's doing. Like the gal with the New York Times, sorry her name doesn't come up right now, but you've got to find those journalists who you know are doing their homework and are keeping journalism alive, because the print is dying. Times Union, 2 weeks ago, publisher retired. 5 of my friends left. I have 4 people left that I know at the Florida Times Union. They've moved their archives over to the Jacksonville Public Library. So when you meet with the editorial board, which used to be 6 people, it's now 1. So the world as I knew it as print has gone. Like it or not, it's gone. I read New York Times online, etc. And I also figured out how not to have a subscription and get behind it and keep going. So, you know, fiddle with it and you can do it too. But you need to be able to have a balanced sources of information as you go forward, because it's going to be very difficult to find the truth. And we're seeing that, unfortunately, in politics. I'm not going to get in that. That's your business. But I'm saying really drill down and try to find the seed, what's really happening in this country. And the whole key is, I hope all of you all vote. That is the most important thing. I don't care who you vote for, but to get involved and to vote is the most important thing you can do, because you all have to fix all the mess that we seem to have done. But artificial intelligence is definitely here to stay. Cars are having difficulty. Many of you said, okay, driverless cars, well, you know, they've already killed 1 person and crashed 3 times, I think. But it's coming. I was at a seminar for the Jacksonville Airport 3 years ago, and one of the head lead guys was there, and he said, driverless cars will eventually be the first real test. More accidents in the country happen with people on the way to the airport because they're in a hurry, and that's when they crash. So what they're going to do is driverless cars will pick you up, like Budget and some of these. They will pick you up at your house. They'll have an internet connection with the plane, so they're going to know exactly where to take you, and it's going to change the way that you enter and get on an airplane. You will have already gone through security, face, etc. The facial recognition is interesting. When I took my kids to Ybor City, and I think it was 1999, they were testing facial recognition. Department of Defense was. And we were just there as tourists. And we had to sign a form that said, you know, we're testing this. Oh, isn't this fun? You can be part of it. So, you know, now it's down to the pixel. And I'll leave it to you as to whether or not you think that's a good thing. We'll talk about that when we get to privacy. Are you a talker or a listener? And as I said, it was about equal talkers and listeners. But there was one line someone had, and I'm so sorry I don't have that sheet. And it was beautifully written. And the fact that you have to, first you talk and you command, but you have to listen in order to really gain the trust to respond. And that's what I don't think we do enough of. I mean, I turn on the TV and yin, 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 and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the screaming and the yelling and all of this. Does nothing. It creates fear, and this is on all sides. Creates fear, and we need to stop that. It's not a good thing, I think, for all of us as human beings. We have to have peace and use inner strength and develop relationships, or we can't do things like work with other countries. We can't develop strategies that bring us together and work together as countries, and we've got to be able to do that. How do you get your news? Like I said, all of y'all said, almost all said CNN and Fox, etc. But really try to find journalists that you feel have your point of view, but be able to say why. Are they doing their homework? Are they getting their sources? Will they keep their sources if it's really something that ends up in court? We're seeing this play out right now with the Kavanaugh situation, which is very interesting, because here's a gal that said something happened. Here's a guy who's about to go to the Supreme Court. She didn't want it announced. Now they know who she is, so what's going to happen? You know, everybody's engaged. What's going to happen? But her privacy was compromised. effect social media has on society, the human quotient. Absolutely, social media has changed us forever. It's faceless. It's bullying very often. It can create an atmosphere where someone will commit suicide, which is a big deal in y'all's area. In fact, my son, from Stetson to law school at South Dakota to graduate school at Harvard, if you take those years, every other year, someone he knew committed suicide. He had another friend from law school last week. He got the call. He had just talked to the guy a week before. So suicide in your age group is a very real thing. If you see someone in trouble, help them. What else are computers doing that are changing our world? The fact that, making not just robots, and one of you had talked about the societal change of robots as little babies, robots as dogs or cats. All my generation is getting older. I'm in charge of a 101-and-a-half-year-old, my husband's father. When I go into that nursing home, what do I see? I see older women, because there are very few of him, and there are many more women, and they're all holding plastic baby dolls. Very interesting. I mean, when dementia sets in, very interesting, but that is a soothing, comfortable thing. Are robots going to take the place? You betcha. And you've already seen it in different manufacturers that are starting to do that. But after robots, cameras are everywhere. I remember when they first had a camera on a street and you got a ticket. I got a ticket in Washington one time because I was over it 1 foot. I fought it, I won, but they got me because I stopped right when the thing took a picture. But cameras are everywhere. When you go on your computer and that little camera's up here and you have your microphone on, the computers can hear you. That's where they get information. If I'm talking to you that I want to get blue socks tomorrow, guess what's going to show up on Google? You're going to see an ad for blue socks over here. So how you tweak your computer to turn off and turn on privacies, you need to know that. Same thing with conditions and terms. When you sell a product now in Europe, in England, you have to have certain language to sell that product. When somebody goes on that website, you have to be able to say, yes, I agree. And we all hate that, those little pop-ups. But that, how to write terms and conditions for products that you may have a contract for to do public relations and strategic marketing, you better know how to do it. And you can't copy something that someone else has done and paid attorneys in New York, $100,000 for. Why? Because Google's going to pick it up word for word and they're going to send you a bill. I'll give you an example. One of my doctors with Jackson Orthopedic Institute had a website. Oh, he loved it. Somebody else did it. And he had a photo from Getty Images. So he gets a letter. You've used our photo. Here's $1,500. Pay us. So he came in, threw it on things, said, I'm not going to pay that. I said, well, okay, the next bill will be for $3,000. Next week, here comes the thing, bill, $3,000. Well, when we got to $15,000, he realized he better pay this bill or he will go to court because they own the copyright of that photo. So you just can't willy-nilly take photographs off the internet and use them for anything. And that was 5 years ago. That's when the crawlers found the photo on his website. And I talked to the attorney. Getty has attorneys. And I called one up and I said, let me guess. You were in a windowless office and you get these things from corporate and you sign your name with your ESQ on it and you send it out. Then the money just comes in. He said, yeah, how'd you know? Well, of course. That's how they make their money. I had a client who takes photos of wrecks and crises and she puts them on the internet and she waits till somebody uses it and she sues them and that's how she makes her money. Very interesting. Because she also goes to political rallies and issues where there are a lot of people in crisis so her photos are dynamic, but that's what happens. Is privacy gone? Most of you said yes, and I do believe it is. But it's also up to you to protect your own. And that comes from the top all the way down the bottom. I think one of the most frustrating things, at least in healthcare, is a thing called HIPAA that we had to process through, that you can't ever say or write. And this is interesting. If you go to your doctor's website right now, and if in the contact section it has a little square for comments, HIPAA violation. Well, guess who just moved into Jacksonville? HIPAA. Guess what they plan to do? These folks are going to every single doctor's office, 4,000 I think, 4,000 doctors, 5,000 in Jacksonville, and they're looking for people who are not doing this properly. Why? To sue them. The government needs money, so they are now going out trying to target individuals, because they've been told for a year, excuse me, not a year, for 10 years, if you don't put the right privacy controls on your website in healthcare, HIPAA will get you. And HIPAA is now, they've already leased property, they're already out in the field, and they'll be coming down here too. So that's just a little word to the wise. Okay, so thank you. That's just a quick overview of the surveys. I thought it was very interesting to see what you all were thinking, why you were thinking it, and then also what interests you. Some of you will go into corporations, and some of you, and what you may already be seeing is that you're not going to have a desk and a phone and a computer, because most of you will be contracted as independent contractors because they don't want to pay for your health care, they don't want to pay for your expenses. So get ready to go out, hang your own shingle, get certified with PRSA or FPRA, go to IABC meetings, etc. And those are also great for job markets. How many of y'all are members of Florida Public Relations Association in here? Need to look at it. That's where your jobs are going to be. How many are members of Public Relations Society of America? Okay, need to look at it. JU has a very vigorous group. Get involved, meet the people. I'll give you an example. So a friend of mine started with AT&T in Jacksonville. He ended up running it for AT&T and the United Way in Washington. He got himself certified. He stayed into the PR market. He understood communications. He went through the wave of the internet, and he worked like crazy. I mean, in this job, you will work like crazy. But the three most important things, I do believe, are to always be and always have the highest ethical standards in all that you do. That is your golden rule. The second thing is to do your research and be sure that you're right when you speak or when you're giving information to someone else to speak. I've written speeches for a lot of people, big hoopty-doops, nonprofits, and all that stuff. Most people don't know how to speak. It is certainly different now because you've got about a minute and a half to engage somebody. I do a lot of content for websites. It's one paragraph, 3 bullets, second paragraph, H1, H2, meta, page title, and you're done. There is less and less time to engage somebody into what you want them to do for you, to be your audience for whoever's paying you to get them engaged. And when you do that, you've got to really be on point. It doesn't always have to be 5th or 6th grade language, even though that's kind of the rule of thumb in the business. But, depending on the product that you're promoting. Anyway, okay, public relations, and I went through Tom Kelleher's book. University of Florida has always had strength in marketing, journalism especially, like Northwestern. I mean, it's known. I thought I turned that off. Anyway, excuse me just a second, I don't want it to. The PR people in the state of Florida, and you need to know them, this is a good course for whatever business you go into. If you stay in journalism, if you stay in communications, if you stay in PR, is somebody going to hire you for media relations? Well, that's really kind of gone over to social media. I mean, you can look at Craigslist, you can look at any of the databases, who's hiring in what section, would you fit in right now? I mean, you've got to really be nimble in this now, and your resume has got to have the keywords. I hate the fact that when you can send these resumes down the proverbial dark hole all day long. If you don't have some of those relationships built in LinkedIn, nobody's going to know you're there. You can have the best resume in the world, nobody's going to find you. They'll find the keywords, but a lot of times there are computers that are picking up the keywords putting it on a desk if somebody's making $12.50 an hour to sift through to take to the next stage. So just, I know I'm jumping around, but just be sure that when you're looking for a job, trying to pull together the skills that you're learning now at Flagler, your communication skills, that you do it in such a direct way that if you're, for instance, trying to get a job at a nonprofit, put the words of the mission and the vision and the guiding principles in your cover letter. That's what they're looking for. If you're looking for a company that sells products worldwide, then put you can travel, you're open to education, you want to become part of the HR team. HR is a very strong component, especially because of this harassment stuff. When Anita Thomas went through the not Anita Hill and Clarence Thomas back in the dinosaur days when I was in healthcare, we took every single manager and took them through harassment training. And there were stipulations and points of what you do and do not do in the business culture. This had never been done before. I mean, we were a group of executives that ran Baptist, and we had we were at the $1 billion mark, and we would hug each other and do all this. You can't do that now. And I kind of miss that. I mean, to me, that's the human quotient. These are the people I worked for, I spent my life there, but that is difficult now. So you have to really try to develop that relationship so you do have a life outside with these people that you work with. I believe in that. So, Tom Kelleher, who knows who Edward Bernays is? Father of PR. Oh my God, I actually hosted him in Jacksonville. It was right before he died. So I think when I read that book, I think Kelleher actually may take his place. There has been no one nationally that came out to say, I'm the PR guru. So University of Florida was smart enough, he was smart enough to get those books out and claim he owns now the PR sphere. And that's what you have to do. He talks about strengthening character with engagement, conversation, influence, transparency, and trust. Trust is really hard to build. It's really hard to keep trust with someone who you have now found out, has talked to the media and given another story, or they were pushed. I'll give you an example. We had a member of the Supreme Court in Baptist. Well, people can go into health systems and you can say they're not here. And that's okay. They're here, but they're not here. We had little codes and all this stuff. Well, National Enquirer came and offered one of my gals in the office $10,000. How is he? What's his status? We only had 5 status points where you could say. Same thing happened with Jimmy Carter's mother. Where is she? What floor? And they would sneak in. I even had them sometimes. They put on outfits. They look like a nurse and just walk on the floor. You can't do that in hospitals anymore. Especially since Baptist, they had a baby stolen and someone was killed. And, all these horror stories in the past 20 years have just been amazing. Social media and influencers. Twitter, I think, is here to stay because the highest person in the land is using it. How you use it and how you determine what goes on Twitter and how you build your Twitter ears, I call them. It's like Kim Kardashian's sister, the younger one. She puts her makeup on there. 44 million people go in, and she buys it. I mean, this is just, talk about marketing and strategy. Oh my God, billionaire at what, 19? Head of Forbes, 100 most richest people in the United States, in the world. I mean, this is amazing, all because of her Twitter database, and because she had a product And they believe, do they believe in the product or do they believe in her? What do y'all think? Is the product worth it? Do you even know what's in the product? Do any of you know what's in makeup? If you did, you probably wouldn't put any, and you wouldn't wash your hair either. But think about the power that that had when she launched her makeup. If you work for a company and you have to put together a strategic plan using social media, digital media, etc., you have really got to know the ins and the outs. You've got to know how to buy that Facebook ad, how to work that Google, and it changes all the time. For instance, page titles 2 months ago were 350 characters. 6 weeks ago, they changed them back to 130. Why? Because Google wants you to buy advertising. So we, in an agency atmosphere, keep up with it. A lot of people think they are adept and they know what's happening in the marketplace. And then I get a client that comes in, well, I went down the street and saw Susie Q and her agency and nothing's working. And then I look at what they did and it's not up to date. So how you keep up with the changes in social media and content for the purpose of advertising in order to enhance the plan that you were making and hired to develop for the company that's paying you a salary is extremely important. There's an organization in Jacksonville that's probably worth you all going in and at least attending one meeting. I think it's $5 or $10. It's called the JOM, Jacksonville Online Marketing something. And Mary Fisher, that I freelance with, is one of the founders. They have, and competitors come in and they have forums. It's once a month, but they have the best of the best talking about issues and solutions in the digital sphere. And it would certainly be worth your while. Just go online, you all get in the car, and go on, and if the subject is of interest to you, listen to what they have to say. Identity. So in Mary's office, one of my friends does logos. Well, it's $2,500. You have to teach a client why the $2,500 is worth it when they can go online and go to a logo place and get it for $150. So that's a real challenge. Sure, we can sit them down with the professionalism and in a beautiful place and here's your coffee, etc. It's still $2,500. But if they're cool, fast, have a new company, etc., startups don't have $2,500 for logos. So they may call you. They may call, usually what I hear, my friend has a son who's a graphic artist and they can do it. Sometimes yes, but if you look at the logos that really last, that really mirror the kind of business, they're few and far between. Do you need a logo? Yes, I think, depending upon your business. How you develop that, because that's the face of the organization, that's what you have to do in your plan. You have to develop the magic about the logo and how that's going to be perceived by the audiences with your marketing Ps and all of that, and whether or not it's going to sell the product. I remember when Coke came out with a new Coke that didn't sell. It was that green Coke or something, and they had a real problem. In fact, the president, I think, was fired. So how the value of the logo is key. So in the 80s and in the 90s, a PR person, especially in the 80s, we used to be paid, and not paid, but we would be assessed as to how many inches we got in a newspaper. Imagine that. Who reads a newspaper? Anybody have a subscription? What do you read? What do you read?
Record.
Oh, okay, St. Augustine Record. By the Times Union, I don't think they carved that out. But I don't have a subscription anymore to the Times Union. Look at Folio. Do you all read Folio from Jacksonville? It's half the size. Do you read Entertaining You? What magazines do you all read? I didn't ask that question. Do any of you all read print magazines? Yeah.
Food and wine and Bon Appetit.
Okay, so you're into that sphere. You'll have to come to my Mulrain Market Farm and Plantation tours. Anybody else? Do you have magazines coming to your place? Anybody else? Which one?
National Geographic.
Huh?
National Geographic.
Love National Geographic. Bought all the CDs when I retired. Was going to go through every single one of them. Actually, when I was in DC, I tried to get a job. My goal was, after I finished up with Bill in the campaign, I wanted to work with National Geographic. I got 2 interviews, I didn't make it, because I was in my mid-50s, I'm sure it was. Because you better know and understand that now is your time, and you better work and make it pristine and keep it on a path where you know where you're going. I mean, you'll move it around a little bit, but you've really got to set those goals and go and achieve what you're trying to do. It's so important to know where you're going. Nothing makes me crazier if I walk into a place. Okay, so I was trying to find the education place for Berkshire Hathaway at a mall, and I've been to Avenues Mall in 25 years. And so I walked into 4 businesses, and I knew it was number 419. So I walked in, I said, "What's your number?" "I don't know." "Where's 419? What's your number?" "I don't know." Or you go into a store and you're trying to get somebody to meet you or whatever, you're on the phone and say, "What's your address?" Nobody knows what their address is. They work there, they don't have any idea. So you really have to be smart about purpose and place. And purpose and place is also something that as you work with companies and you're developing their purpose, their reason for being, and you're developing their place in the marketplace, you better have your ducks in a row. You better know how to drill down on the internet and find out all of the facts, who's their competition. I do a lot of strategic plans that end up being 160 pages, but if they tell me what they're doing, and plus it's kind of fun, and you know, you can make a couple $1,000s doing that, but you've got to be able to know how to drill down. I mean, you become a librarian, you really get in there and get the matter. Literacy and leadership. Literacy is tough. 15 years ago, I did another young woman and I did a plan for East Jacksonville, 32205. If you walk out of those wooden shanty homes, no air conditioning, no heating, they're in food deserts. You look up and 7 blocks away there's downtown Jacksonville. There are all these tall buildings. This is where kids are shot. I understand there was another child shot who was waiting for a bus yesterday in Jacksonville. I mean, oh my God, what is going on? But point being, you have places around cities, not just Jacksonville, but around American cities now, and they were really hurting. There is no food that is available. When you're trying to find who's going to buy your product on the internet, and you're trying, Amazon, you know, which is not taxed yet, but now they're talking about it, you know, is that going to make a difference with you all if you have to pay shipping? Y'all still going to go to Amazon? Still going to go to Amazon? You know, there are companies that are in charge of increasing the likes. So however many stars you have, I can find a company that I can pay to move you from a 2 to a 5, and they have no idea who you are. Doesn't matter. So, you know, there's a lot of guerrilla marketing going on at the same time. Very interesting. Online versus face-to-face. I mean, I came out of selling in a department store. When's the last time you saw a person in a department store? They don't even exist. You know, you walk in, hello, hello. You can't even find anybody to ring up what you have, not to mention the thievery that takes place. So what you go into a department store and everything's on camera. What kind of shopping is that? I remember when the internet started and we thought we are never going to buy stuff. And now you have Carvana and you pick a $35,000 car, really, on the phone, and they deliver it to your door. You don't like it, you send it back in 3 days. Fascinating. So you have to really be prepared for this fast kind of environment that has new sales associated with it, with new products, and how you're going to best sell that product. Changing media. I hate that Charlie Patton and some of my friends at the Time Junior are gone. A lot of them, interestingly enough, are still freelancing, so I can still hear their voice of common sense and reason. But you really have to find those people in the media that you believe in, and you can help by listening and reading what they have to say about certain subjects, you can then distill the facts for yourself. And I think journalism and future technologies with digital media and content, I remember, it was just 2-3 years ago, content on the website was 2 or 3 paragraphs, then you'd have the bullets, then you'd have the H2 header, then you have something else. I mean, now it's like maybe, 6 sentences? And it's hard to grasp something, whether you're an interior designer, you've got pretty pictures. If you're a chef, you've got your products and, beautiful pictures. So give me, are any of y'all doing websites? Any of y'all developing websites?
They all created a website for themselves as their first project.
And you bought the URL. How many of y'all bought it from GoDaddy? Do you know when you leave GoDaddy and all the content on their site, they own it? I had a woman that came in, a friend of mine, owns a $2.5 million business. She was getting ready to sell the business. Guess what? She can't take it with her. You better read those terms and conditions before you buy anything on the website. You better own your website. You better know where you are putting that URL to make sure that it's going to be responsive. Now, of course, everybody's going to go to GoDaddy and register.com, but just make sure that when you do it, you're aware of what you can and can't do for the future. That's really important. I mean, web.com is about to sell, $6 billion? I remember when they started. Their engagement gal, it was like chief fun officer, but they had people all over the world. I have architect friends in Washington who, they do the plans during the day. They send it to the Philippines at night, so they sleep the next morning, then they come in at 10 o'clock, all the work's done. So much of what we have done in PR and resources that we have used to develop the strategic plans and the processes that we depend on to be bright and nimble and can process for clients who have given us a job to do no longer exists in this country. I remember just when Comcast started, I couldn't get answers and my Comcast wasn't working. And I kept the name, the time, and who I talked to. When I talked to 27 people, I called my friend Ken Amaro and said, we're going to go over to Comcast. I'm done. This is wasting my time. I'm paying for this service, and they can't fix it. So I show up with my dear friend who's over there, and I said, you think we can fix it now? Yeah, okay, we don't need the TV. How powerful is TV? I'll tell you how powerful TV is. I had a, breast cancer patient, Florida Blue, right? She needed a $50,000 operation. That's usually the threshold for breast cancer. Used to be anyway. I don't know what it is now, probably 80 or 90,000. And they wouldn't approve her procedure. She had class 4 breast cancer. So I called up the president and said, Channel 4 is going to be in my office at 4 o'clock. We're going to get ready for the 5 o'clock news. You really should consider this woman's trying to save her life. What do? They determine the value of the 6 o'clock news and how that's going to injure their brand. It's all about what are you doing to build the brand, keep the brand, and what is the crisis communications going to cost them if you don't give this woman her breast cancer surgery. Well, guess what? They did. So if you have to use those tactics, you've got to be able to do it. So we talked about a lot of stuff. What are some of the challenges that you all anticipate in the marketplace? And then what areas are you all trying to get to? What do you want to do with this? How many of you all plan to have a communications career? Okay, so what sector? Education, okay, needs it. Duval County, the new gal, finally. Oh, gee, she brought art back to the schools. Well, duh, art has been missing in Duval County elementary education for like 10 years. Now, that just makes me crazy. Okay, where do you want to go? Oh, you don't know yet. That's all right, you'll find out. Where? Nonprofit. Okay, nonprofit work has changed. How has it changed? I used to do the 990 for Baptists. Every time anybody had an hour anywhere, we locked it in. because we were, trying to get all these awards for all this community stuff. Nonprofit work is difficult work. What do? You raise money. How do you raise money? You make friends. How do you make friends? You have to develop relationships. How long do you keep those relationships? Why do people give money? Well, big people give money because they're either going to send it to Washington because they have an overage and everybody scratches at them for money and they know that. And you go in there and you're scratching for it too. But if you don't have that relationship, then everybody else out there goes to get them. Where do they go? They go to community foundations. Naples #1 in Florida, Jacksonville's #2. But what's happening is that a lot of people with a lot of money nationwide that used to give and fund all of these things that we've enjoyed, whether they're libraries at schools or colleges and universities, the kids don't want to do this. Kids want the money. The kids are not donating like the philanthropists who are now in their 80s and 90s in the United States. There is a lot of philanthropy out there. The best way to gauge that, and I think you all may have one in San Augustine, is the CFRE. They have an annual philanthropic luncheon every year. And if you're a nonprofit, you bring and honor your donors, and it's a very nice event. But to keep up with GuideStar, and do you know GuideStar? You need to know GuideStar. Every nonprofit in the United States is in GuideStar. You have to have a subscription to get in, but if you want to work for a nonprofit that has vision and a mission that you want to sink into, you need to find somebody that's, and the college probably has it, go in there. Every nonprofit's in there. You can read everything. And then you know what their schedule is for money, what they give money to, and begin to write grants for nonprofits. Maybe you'll get them. I mean, I'm waiting for my son to hear from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation this week. Cross your fingers. But dealing with nonprofits is very difficult because even though you go in for public relations, you're in there to raise money. And raising money is not easy. There is a big divide with here's a lot of money and here's everybody else. There are not a lot of people in the middle right now, or at least that's what I'm saying. Where else? Who else? Communications. What industry? What silo? Yeah.
Science.
Pardon?
Science.
Science. Oh, God, I love it. If I was your age again, I would do that. I think that's where the future is. And if you want to go into genetic engineering or anything having to do with genetics, that's where the future is, because all of pharma is going to make a pill that's just for you according to your DNA. And pharma pays big. I have friends that just get out of college and work for pharma. That's $125,000 plus a car. But you better have a biology degree. You better understand how to work with physicians. And you don't have to have, 5-inch heels and low-cut dresses anymore. It's down to business. They can no longer, excuse me, take you out to Aspen with your family and everybody skis while you sign in for a medical continuing education class and go skiing. You used to be able to do that. Can't do it anymore, which I think is great. When you are a pharma representative and you go in, you can only bring food, and when you were there, you're not allowed to, I believe, you're not allowed to go into the physician office, and you sit into the generic area where the employees of that office go, and when the doctor comes in, you check him in, and the time he leaves. They want to make sure you're talking to the physician. But what part of science interests you?
More of climate change.
Big. I mean, look at what is happening. Look at North Carolina. I have friends that have lost their houses. I lived in Jacksonville when we had, like you all have, I mean, all you have to do is drive down A1A and see what's in some of the houses. Right now in Jacksonville, there are still houses on the river that are $700,000 and they're just gutted. Across from the yacht club, 3 houses have been razed. It's up to you all to figure out about climate change. We're not doing a very good job with that. I think, yes, some is man-made, but I think the earth is changing too. Maybe we poked holes in it, I don't know. But the environmental, and work with your riverkeeper here. Neil Armajon, I think Neil is still riverkeeper here. In fact, I'm working with the Memorial Park Association because they were the park during Irma. Remember the big sculpture and the water that ran over it, and the photographer took that picture? He had over 1 million hits. Imagine that. Because, and that water in Jacksonville, who would have ever thought downtown would be underwater? Any of y'all from Miami? Well, then you know. You can talk to any cab driver on a full moon in Miami and he will tell you which streets are underwater. So if you want a career, engineering, biomed, all of that kind of thing, that is absolutely wide open. And if you're a woman, go get it and you know, please help us. Because people aren't understanding. How many trillion, 320, I think, I just read the figure, I'm probably wrong there, trillion gallons of water fell during this last hurricane. What do we need? We need that water out west. So as you look to see what crops can no longer grow where they've always grown, that's how you make money with a big corporation. They're not, a lot of the, it's so darn hot, so much of this isn't working anymore with vegetables. Look at the, what is it, the avocado in California. Excuse me, big crisis there. Who else? What areas do you want to go in with communication?
Crisis management.
Crisis management is tough. One of my first jobs in crisis management, I had just joined Baptist, and we had just launched Lifelight, the helicopter. And Lifelight was on a PR mission at the beach, but somebody had left a belt near the back, what do you call it, you know, twirly thing? Yeah, and it got caught and it went down in the marsh. So the TV station had called and I had said, and we had a picture of it, because they couldn't get out there fast enough. So I went out there and they had the picture, but my headline with the employee newspaper was Lifelight auto-rotated into the marsh. As the water was coming up, we had to get that thing out of there, you lose $2 million. And then I got a call. Mr. Malone would like to see you, and I thought, oh man, I've really done it. But I thought that was telling the truth. Okay, and it was. He thought it was injuring the brand. You don't need to say that it auto-rotated down into the marsh. I mean, literally, they could have crashed and they could have all died. It was a very serious situation. So when you handle crisis communications, you have to be very, very clear. And we have so many crises going on. Oh my God. I mean, 9/11 in itself was a change shift, I think, for so many of us. When my kid was at Bowles, they had a lockdown at Bowles because Jebby Jr. and one of his brothers, you know, was at Bowles. That really changed a lot of us in our thinking. Who would have ever thought you would go to the airport and have to go through all of this security? I remember going to the airport, my husband and I would be flying out, and we couldn't park the car, didn't have time. We used to throw it to a friend that worked for Delta, go park the car when you can, okay, fine, go catch the plane. Doesn't happen anymore. And TSA isn't wonderful. So, and you have to decide whether it's really good with what we're doing at the border with the families. You know, these are things that are really facing you all that you need to think about, have thoughts, research thoughts as to what you think should happen, should not happen. Because this is affecting United States citizens long term. I don't know what to do about that. You all have to fix it. What other sectors? You guys, what other sectors? Yeah.
Sports and entertainment law.
Great business. Do you kneel or do you not kneel? No, okay, so what happened? Look at that as a situation. When all of that happened, the TV revenue trashed down to the bottom. I think they lost 19% in 2 months. When you lose TV revenue, all of a sudden people, oh, what's happening? What are we going to do? Doesn't matter about the opinion except for the fact that people buy the tickets didn't like that. So you have players using TV that your ticket paid for. So I pay $125 for a ticket. It goes to pay for the NFL guy. It goes to pay for TV, wherever they are, CBS, whatever. And it goes to pay the NFL itself. Well, you know, you have to decide, but TV and entertainment law is a very big and very lucrative thing. A friend of mine is actually, he handles the tennis player that went up against Serena. Did y'all see the tennis match? Oh my God. I mean, after the first one, stop. Take a breath. I personally, was this pre-negotiated maybe? Nike didn't really do anything? All those were, okay. Was this out of anger? Should you show anger if you were a mentor for little girls and young people trying to get into tennis? That's a crisis management thing. Is this good behavior? Was this something that people that bought $5,000 tickets sitting on the front row and more money, did they want to really see that, or did they go in there to see good tennis? And you have to decide, because what's going to happen? Will that guy once again be a referee? Should he? Did he follow the rules to the letter? Should he be allowed to referee another tennis match? Was she right? She was right in the sense that I remember the John McEnroe. I remember, yes, men have done many worse things, but there were 3 times. First time it should have stopped. Second time, boom, racket. Third time, anger. Is that what you paid your ticket to see? So you have to decide. So you would, as an attorney for, if you were a sports and entertainment attorney for the USTA and the WTA, you would look, well, he followed the rule book exactly. Should he not have followed the rule book? I don't know, y'all decide. What other sectors are y'all interested in? Hands. Come on, where else do you want to go with your...
I'm the same with him with sports.
Sports, what kind of sports?
Anything, but to be specific, probably golf.
Okay, all right, let me do football just for a second.
I can do football as well.
Okay, when I was at Baptist, we opened Jackson Orthopedic Institute. Well, guess who came down 60 minutes? Guess what the question is? Are you going to pull them off the field if they have an injury and they're at risk? Of course not. I'll let y'all decide. Concussions in football. Leave them in, take them out. I encourage all of you all, the Gay Culver House, whose daddy owned the Tampa Bay Bucks, did a TEDx. Y'all know what TEDx is? No? Go find out. TEDx Jacksonville. Tickets are on sale for October. Be there. TEDx is very important. The speakers, there are like 20,000 that you can choose from now. These are people doing things that really matter. So Gay Culver House, her dad gave her the Tampa Bay Bucks. She was the first one in the NFL to blow the whistle on concussions. There's a picture of Gay with Goodell in Washington talking before Congress. And she's telling them 20 years ago, it's got to stop, they're being injured, because NFL guys were dying. They would get tall, they would go crazy, they would say, oh, it's not related, until Dr. Ogachi, and you saw the movie, all true, and now, so what's happened as it's moved down? Now you have concussion clinics for kids in football, you have ways to measure, now technology is such, you don't want a brain bleed. This isn't a good idea. Same thing as, wrestling a little bit, but, fighting. But you have to decide, do you enjoy watching someone get their head beaten to where they're going to have a brain bleed? That's a personal decision. I don't do football anymore. That's up to you. Okay, yeah.
I'm also science. I want to be a writer for the National Geographic.
Then find out how you do that. They do freelances. They may be interested on a college perspective of National Geographic. Find out. Call somebody. How do you do that? You find them on LinkedIn. Reg Murphy's a friend of mine. He's number 2 on the board. He lives in Sea Island. So when I wanted to go work for National Geographic, I called a friend. He said, come up. So I'm sitting there in his, in his house. I didn't get the job, but that's okay. I had the great experience. Find out. It's like being a photographer for National Geographic. There are a lot of great photographers out there. When they pick and choose them, how do they do that? Why do they do that? Because they can package them and they can put them in a city around the country and have people pay and then further the brand. It's all about the brand. What other sectors? What other sectors?
Fashion.
Huh? I'm sorry.
Fashion.
Oh, God, came from there. It is amazing to me. There was another one today on my Words with Friends that you now take pictures of things in your closet, and for a fee, this gal will tell you what you should wear that night. That is amazing.
I see some apps like that. It's like upload pictures in the closet and then like
Yes.
an app will like give you feedback.
So, I mean, I don't go to malls. I don't buy like that. I mean, sometimes I'll even go to Goodwill. Who cares? I bought my son a Ralph Lauren navy cashmere jacket, tag $675, bought it for $15. You're crazy not to go to Goodwill. Did you know that Goodwill even has a brand that they sell on the internet for Christian Dior shoes and all that stuff? I got rid of all my stuff. I mean, I had all the, Dior shoes and Ferragamos, and I'm in another place now. But look at what has happened to the fashion industry. I think what's happened to fashion with the Me Too that's happened in movies, I think you're going to see the same thing. You cannot have children in Thailand at 7 years old sewing for these folks, and we know they're doing it. So when you look and see where your clothes are from, do you know who sewed them? Are you furthering the slavery that's happening in the fashion industry? Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like with Nike, how they're pushing the whole like happening thing right now, but then they have sweatshops at the same time. So
Right.
it's
Well,
like
they're right here in America too. So I guess at the end of the day, learn more about what you're doing. You need to find your own place and purpose. Fashion and fabrics, I'll give you an example. So benzene, y'all know what benzene is? Benzene that you find in plastic bottles. So would I take this bottle out and leave it in my car when it's 100 degrees outside? Why? Because the benzene is going to leach in the water. So if you've been to a place like maybe a special event and they have all the running and they've got all these outside, and when you take a sip of the water, it tastes funny, right? It's because the benzene leached. So one of my best friends years ago was married to a big hoochie dude. Big guy in banking, starch shirts. Guess how you starch a shirt? Benzene. 20 years of the highest starched shirts, benzene got into his system, killed him with leukemia. Absolutely, if you look up benzene now, they say cancer-causing chemical. So do you want to do that? Do you want to have plastic in your house, or do you want to have glass? You certainly don't want to have some white things if they have lead. I guess I'm 68, so I question a lot of things. When I say know where your makeup comes from, if you knew what was in half your makeup, you would never buy it, especially lipstick with red in it. Fingernail polish. I let my hair grow because when be gray because when I would get it dyed, it would like eat my scalp, and I thought, well, that's really stupid. Plus, I don't see it. Who cares? But point being, do you really know what you're doing yourself? From the clothes that you wear to the things that you put onto your skin that can go in, and they're doing a lot of research on that now, health-wise. Food, besides the needles that they're finding in the strawberries in Australia right now, which is a real problem. They have somebody sticking little teeny thin needles in strawberries all over Australia, and they can't find the source. But at the end of the day, you're going to get through Flagler. What year are you all? Sophomore, junior, any seniors? Okay, so you're trying to decide, graduate school? Am I going to go ahead and get a job? You may need to get your degree, get a job, But make sure it's something that you love. Just don't get a job. If you don't have the passion for what you have, you're going to hate it. Don't start out like that. It's not worth it. And if you can even get a part-time job, if you want to write, who are the writers? Okay, go to Edible Magazine, see if they're interested. You've got sources here. Go to City Life, see if he's interested. You know, even if you get a small article, you're starting to build your resume. And the people that are on your resume are really important. So make sure that's where LinkedIn comes in. And learn from these people. Because you can't do it by yourself. You just can't do it by yourself. Nonprofits can't do it by themselves anymore. If you're a nonprofit and you don't collaborate, you're out of business. If you're a nonprofit and you don't collaborate with other nonprofits to get a grant, you're not going to get the grant. If you're a nonprofit and you're not diverse, you're not going to get the grant. So, you know, the world has changed. So now I open it up for questions. Anything. Throw it at me. What would you like to know? Something. I know you want to know something. Go ahead. You're thinking. Yeah, yeah.
I'm always thinking.
Good. What do you think about?
Just everything. But here's what I wanted to ask.
Sure.
So, I don't know, I wasn't here for the first 5 minutes, but can you talk at all about how you progressed to the highest career state?
I made it up.
Yeah. Oh, you made
When
it.
I was at, I'm serious, I reached beyond what I could do and then I figured out how to do it. When I was at Baptist, they said, have you ever done newsletter? And I said, yeah. When I'm talking about newsletter back then, it was on the typewriter and you had to have 5 spaces indented and then you took it to the printer. Yeah, I didn't know any of that language, I didn't know how to do any of that. If you want to do it badly enough, and they know, and maybe they did know I did know how to do a newsletter, and if you have the enthusiasm and the willingness, and because it shows in your body language, it shows in your communication, they're going to hire you. Other job, I remember one time I was an escrow analyst for for the charter company. I never knew what the hell it was when I was there. And then I worked at Sli's, S-L-I-G-H''S, one of the finest couture places in all of the South for 2 years. And then I worked with May Company. I was Fashion and Special Events Director. Brought in Gloria Vanderbilt, helped start the Women's Tennis Association up in New Island. I loved fashion. And I know that experience at Sli's and at May Cohen's, I can sell anything. I don't care what it is. I can package it and I can sell it and I can talk you into this. And I think that must have been where I got it. I mean, I've always been competitive. I used to swim, you know, all that. But I think that you have to show that enthusiasm. Because if you don't have it, they can pick up on it and I don't want you in my office. You know, I had great people for 20 years. All my people stayed. And I still work with them. In fact, it was funny. I made y'all know Buddy Check? Anybody heard of Buddy Check? It's a breast self-exam program in Jacksonville. I made it up. Baptist owns the copyright and trademark, had 2 million people on it. I had it in, 102 places around the world. And Jeannie Blaylock swore it was hers. Who cares? Sometimes you have to give things to people. I don't need it. I know what I did. But she was the voice. And the media with the voice has the power. Give it to them. Give it to Channel 12. Doesn't matter. So now, almost 3 years later, she's, you know, queen of breast cancer. But anyway, but those things don't matter. There will be times in your life where you're really involved with great things. That's what's exciting, or at least to me. I mean, I've been able to meet people and do things that I would have never in this world thought possible. But I did that through connections. The connection that I made in 2012 with Christophe Degaulin, who's actually an accountant, but he could care less. You may have read in the newspaper here about the French guy with the motorcycle, the 1918 motorcycle. We had lunch with Nancy Shaver here, and he put together a World War I motorcycle and cab car that helped liberate France. that Americans were in when they liberated France on November 11, 1918. Now imagine this, somebody's driving the motorcycle, but the person in the cab car has the gun. So if you're the enemy, who are you going to shoot? The person with the gun that's trying to shoot you, or the guy on the motorcycle? I mean, these are things that I would have never thought about. Anyway, Christophe took that puppy all the way around the country, went to the World War I Museum, had 2 French press with him, a French journalist, photojournalist, who is now my best friend. They all had families, and I had them on the couch. And he's now going to be riding that 100-year-old motorcycle, the Champs-Élysées, on November 11th, because France is going to be saluting America that helped liberate France. That was so cool. I would have made $20,000, $30,000 handling that as a PR person. I didn't charge a thing. But he also runs the oldest business in France. He runs Chateau de Goulan in Nantes, and they are one of the oldest 100 businesses in the world. But I'm going to go over there and spend a week. But it was such fun, and we engaged Harley Davidson and all of this. So he ended up meeting Mr. Davidson, one of the founders' kids up in Milwaukee. So when you do PR, it really brings, it just springboards you into all these really cool places that you wouldn't go if you were not respected as a professional, ethical, on budget. I was the only vice president for years that gave money back. You know, I didn't spend it to spend it. I spent it because it needed to be spent because it was budgeted. But I never spent all of it, if that makes sense. I mean, nobody could believe it. And you know, back then it was $2.5 million budget. I can't even imagine what it is now when they opened MD Anderson last week. But how am I doing on time?
We are down to the last
Down to the last minute. Okay, well, I'll be available for any questions. I wish you all luck. Thank you to all of you all who sent your surveys back. I went through them last night. And I will send her the recap that I thought I sent, but it wasn't there. But thank you for having me. I hope I shared a couple pearls with you that you can use. Good luck.